Alright, so it's that time of the summer again. And Michael Bay has brought us yet another Transformers movie. The first one was 10 years ago this year. And in that span of 10 years, we've gotten 5 of these motherfuckers. So there was the ones with Shia were 2 years apart, and now we're getting them 3 years apart. And voila, we've already had a decade of live-action Transformers movies. And people tend to kind of... Obviously, it definitely has an audience, for sure. But obviously, it's also one of those cases where I almost feel kind of ridiculous even doing this, like even making this video, because people basically sitting in front of a camera on YouTube bitching about a Transformers movie is so incredibly cliche at this point. How it's like people basically walk into these movies just ready to hate them. And that's not necessarily without reason. There are a lot of things, because for the most part, you can't really deny them on a technical aspect. For the most part, at least the effects are quite... they were certainly kind of groundbreaking at the time, and they really kind of... I think the reason a lot of people point to Transformers as that ultimate, these are the for stupid people movies, or whatever they say, that it kind of started the whole let's make every blockbuster as big and CGI heavy and explosive, literally, as possible. And a lot of people still seem to agree that it more or less worked the first time around. And then, you follow that up with Revenge of the Fallen, and, of course, bad things will happen, but there are certainly... I don't feel like one of those people where I'm not going to go into a Transformers movie and then come out saying this movie is, the death of movies, and this movie is, like, the worst thing that happened. This movie, murdered my family. People, especially on the internet, devote so much time and effort into just hating these movies. There are some people where I think that's all they do with their entire life. I'm not there. I will see one, I will more than likely not like it, and then I'll bitch about it for about 20 minutes or a half hour or so, and then I'll just forget about it. There are not many things I remember about the other Transformers movies, except for 4, because when I would watch Fargo on FX for the past 10 weeks, almost always the movie that was on before Fargo started was Age of Extinction. So I saw the ending of Age of Extinction again like 5 times over the past 10 weeks. And some of these have some really great scenes. One of my favorite action scenes, period, in this decade is the highway chase in Dark of the Moon. I've praised this before, it's like 3 minutes long, the editing is on point, it's from a distance so you can see what all is happening, and it's competent, and it's exciting, and fantastic. Jablonski's score is amazing in that scene. And it was great. That movie is like 2 hours and 40 minutes, but that 3 minutes of it is fantastic. So, going into this one, it's really kind of... I don't know, it's not really... I wasn't necessarily dreading it the way I was dreading Age of Extinction, which is weird because Age of Extinction pretty much lived up to how bad I thought it would be. I remember absolutely not caring for it at all. But there was something about this one, I think it was probably the plot, where I was hearing about the whole King Arthur thing, and there was supposedly the whole Nazi thing. I had to step out to go to the bathroom for like 2 minutes, and I realized that the Nazi thing, I don't remember being in there. The whole controversy where Michael Bay like decked out like Winston Churchill's building and like Nazi stuff because they were gonna go back in time, and like the Decepticons were gonna make the Nazis win World War II or something. I don't know if like the controversy made them cut that out, or if I just totally slept on something, or I may have just totally imagined that, but it was interesting that that was missing, but we still do the whole... There's always we see how far back we can take when the Transformers were, like how far back in time they go, and now we basically get... Earlier this year, we got an entire King Arthur movie through the eyes of Guy Ritchie, so now we know what that's like. We may not feel any better or worse about it after that. But now, for like 10 or 15 minutes here, we get to see what a Michael Bay King Arthur movie would look like. Yes, it's full of explosions, but honestly, it's not a bad scene. It's a nice kind of big, gigantic, epic start to this movie. And then it immediately goes into Merlin being not, in fact, a wizard, but a drunken human. A drunken human who is played by Stanley Tucci. Stanley Tucci, who was also in Age of Extinction, as another character in present day. Not sure how that works. But regardless, and no attention is really drawn to that either. It's just one of those things that just is, and you have to go with it. And so, going into this whole connecting King Arthur to the Transformers is kind of like, well, I know people like to say Michael Bay probably hasn't cared for a long time, but now I think we're getting into substantial levels of, let's just see what the fuck we can do, and just how far we can take this. It's not really as, like, over the top of campy of an idea as you might be thinking, no more or less than the whole dinosaur Transformers things that Age of Extinction was doing, but actually not even close to that out of control, but still, I don't know, it was just kind of, because I kept hearing that Bay wanted to end the series here, or at least end the series for him here, so it was like, so is he just gonna say fuck it and go all out? Is this just gonna be the throw everything in, including the kitchen sink version of what Bay has been throwing at us? Because obviously his passion's not totally there. We all know that the only reason he made Age of Extinction was because Paramount let him make Pain and Gain first. I'm really not sure what the bribe was for this, unless it was to, if you make this, we promise we'll stop bothering you to make Transformers movies, but there's sequel bait through the end credits. So, I don't know what's going on anymore. I don't think Paramount knows what's going on. Obviously, even if Bay does manage to push himself away from this, number one, it's hard to tell what he'll go into, and secondly, it's, what they're just gonna reboot it or spin off anyway. I think they're already planning a spin-off. I think I saw that headline a couple of days ago. So it's, yeah, it's a series that's just going to keep doing its thing, and if you don't like it from the start, you're not going to as it goes. But I don't know, I kind of go back and forth. Like I said, there are some things about, like, the first one I guess is fine. Revenge of the Fallen is terrible. Dark of the Moon certainly had highs, but, you know, for the most part, the other 2 hours and 20 minutes or so, not so much. And then Age of Extinction is just complete crap. So now we're kind of doing this back and forth thing, and we're kind of right in the middle here, because I do understand, I haven't looked at really any of the reviews for this, because you don't even need to look to know what they already are. It's people saying, oh, this is the worst thing ever, oh, this is stupid, oh, this is dumb, you know, kill me. And yeah, that is the way I felt watching Revenge of the Fallen and Age of Extinction and stuff like that, but I think with this one it's probably going to be a little overdone, and it's going to be more or less the people kind of saw what they wanted to see when they went into it. That's not to dismiss some of the bullshit that's in this movie, but it's really not to the so terrible levels, at least that I was expecting. Maybe it's because the bar was so low for me, I don't know. But for a start, well, I was really kind of thrown off at the start because the whole movie just kind of fell out of whack from the get-go, even though I do think this big epic King Arthur thing is kind of cool, a cool way to start it. The weird misplaced editing is kind of foreshadowed to us at the very start here when we get, you know, when you go in and you sit down and watch a movie and you see the logos for the studios and the production companies and all that, and then you'll get a, you know, the studio presents thing or whatever, or the production credits or whatever. No, we start with the credits. Then we get the Paramount logo. I guess because they really wanted that shot of the catapult things coming out through the logo. But okay. And to go on that, obviously, this is one of those cases where it's not so much necessarily that the action scenes aren't necessarily terrible. It's the way the other scenes are put together and the way they're kind of... Because there are moments here where we're introducing Anthony Hopkins into this movie because, you know, why not? We got fucking Malkovich for Dark of the Moon and Frances McDormand. But here, it's, for a while there, it's kind of like they couldn't get Anthony Hopkins to be in the same place as this movie. So it's like the first few times we see him, it's almost like he's just in some soundstage and he's got a background behind him. And the way we cut to him, it's like he's not even present in the actual scene that he's supposed to be in. That's not even to say anything about the fact that John Turturro came back, and you talk about, phoned-in performances. Literally, every scene of John Turturro is him in, like, one location talking on the phone. So, that's actually, seems like how he got out of this. It's really weird. I am pretty positive that John Goodman and Steve Buscemi voice Transformers in this movie, so I must say, it did strike me as a bit bizarre that they got 3 cast members from Barton Fink and The Big Lebowski to be in Transformers 5. That's quite a leap, so congratulations to that. But anyway, and there's also stuff like we're meeting the Maker, which kind of reminded me of Tilda Swinton in the Narnia movies, who I guess is supposed to be like the ultimate thing. It's very unclear, like many things plot-wise in these movies, but it seemed like those scenes were very much like a movie was happening, and those scenes were an extra thing, and they just kind of had to place them in the movie in awkward places, even when you're in mid-scene. So it just kind of all together feels, sloppily put together, which obviously is not news for these movies. So then you have to do the plot that I think is the plot of every Transformers movie, which is the humans have something that the Transformers need, and then battles ensue. Usually in big cities, but this time we're in the sky, because Transformers was behind on that trend, so it's just now catching up. It's like the small rhino in the Stampede in Jumanji. It's coming in like the very last minute to say, oh, by the way, I'm here also. So we're going to do the Avengers, Suicide Squad, Ninja Turtles, Fantastic Four, etc. ending. Which is, like, Age of Extinction's ending, I'm kind of having trouble even remembering where exactly we were. We were in something. I don't remember. But it may have been in the air, it may have been on the ground, I really don't remember. But anyway, and that's not to say that there aren't, some cool scenes in this movie. Some people may deny it, but there are. I really like the scene when Bumblebee comes in, and he appears to be blown to pieces, and then he kicks everybody's ass as he reassembles himself. Stuff like that. And the effects. I was talking about how the effects are always a big deal in these movies. I do remember thinking that the effects took a massive dive in Age of Extinction. Like, they looked significantly more shitty than they usually do, because usually that is like the grand spectacle. That is the best thing about the movies. No matter how bad they get, the effects are always insanely good. And they've managed to get back up there. The effects in this are a big step up from the way they were in Age of Extinction. They look back kind of on par with themselves. But that's not to say there's not some weird stuff in here. Somehow Michael Bay found a way to put a Boys in the Hood reference in Transformers 5. Where it's, I'm certain it's not a coincidence. The scene when the kids gather and then one of them says, "You want to see some dead robots?" And they go and they look at dead robots. And it's pretty much delivered. You'd almost think it's the exact audio from Boys in the Hood when he says, "You want to see a dead body?" He just replaced body with robots. That's a weird thing to do, Michael Bay. But okay. And then to go on that, there's also another weird scene where our main girl, if you want to call her that, not the small one, but the older one. that's how much they mean to me. They're the smaller one and the older one. They have no other traits. And this woman is playing polo. And you think Michael Bay movie, you think the big action scenes, you think the chases and the explosions and all that. Well, this polo scene, this polo match, is basically shot like another Michael Bay action scene. And I think it's played up as serious. Like, it's supposed to fit the tone of what else is going on here. That scene's a little embarrassing. I'm really not sure. I don't know if they were trying to do, like, kind of like how exciting Fincher made rowing and The Social Network. Maybe he was going for that. it doesn't work. It's really fucking dumb, but but going on these characters now that I've brought them up, you probably think to yourself, well, there's really no reason to ever care about the characters in any of these movies. And that's definitely true here. Like I was talking about those kids, especially this girl that we find that's supposedly going to be like she acts like she's going to be our protagonist. And then we've got Wahlberg's little sidekick here, who obviously doesn't have T.J. Miller anymore, thank Christ. I do remember that scene in Age of Extinction because it made me so happy to watch T.J. Miller get silenced in such a violent, disturbing way. And here you look at his friend and it's kind of like, I guess Donald Glover was busy, or Donald Glover said, fuck you, I don't want to do a Transformers movie. So we ended up with this guy, whose name I don't know, playing Wahlberg's comedy sidekick. And then about halfway through the movie, these characters, the kids and the sidekick, they just vanish. They come back at the end. It turns out they're just hanging out in the damn dump with John Goodman Transformer. And that's it. They're like played up as they're going to be our big protagonists. I think there was a whole... I heard about this around the time Beauty and the Beast came out. A specific trailer for this movie was put on it, and it made it like central to this little girl character. Well, she's 14, but still. And they made it like she was this really central character, and it was like going to be a girl power thing or something. I don't know, but she's really not. She's there, and then she's just suddenly not, and then suddenly at the end she's supposed to be really important again. But she really doesn't matter. If anything, it makes you question Michael Bay's morality, because it's like, you introduce all these characters like Megan Fox and Rosie Huntington-Whiteley, and I think Nicola Peltz, or whatever her name is obviously Bay's going to do his thing where you don't follow the girl character, you follow the girl character's ass with the camera, and that's all that matters. Get them bending over shit, and just doing all that stuff, wearing all the skimpy clothes, and it's like, okay, Michael Bay, well, your female protagonist now is a 14-year-old. What are you going to do, man? And it's like, you hope it's not going to go there. But, of course, you know, then it's like, oh, by the way, we have another. And then it's, I'm not sure who this actress is, but it's kind of like, they wanted to give a Megan Fox vibe, but they needed a British actress. So they basically got this woman that looks like a combination of Megan Fox and Emily Blunt in one person. Just take away any and all acting ability, strictly from Blunt, of course. And you have this character whose name I don't even remember, and we're supposed to buy that she is like a descendant of Merlin, and that is her purpose here. This descendant of Merlin, who, by the way, does sound dumb, but to the movie's credit, would be a lot dumber if they hadn't revealed that Merlin was just a drunk human. So, at least there's that. But this is also a character where, when they're looking for something very important, they look all around a room, they look in every, facet, they look in every nook and cranny, and then after all this looking, it's like, oh, let's look in my secret cupboard. It's like, well, okay, so, you're looking for something that's very sacred, something that's very, very important, and you just so happen to have a secret cupboard in this room that it's probably in. And you don't look there first, do ya? Okay, so we're dealing with that kind of bullshit throughout the movie. So it's got stuff like that in it, but this is the thing. Is like I said, you gotta look at your lowered bars here. You look at all the stupid shit that's been in the other movies. You've got all the T.J. Miller bullshit in Age of Extinction. You've got the Romeo and Juliet law thing in Age of Extinction. I remember it better than I thought I did. Oh, shit. The thing where Jack Rayner, like, drops his car down, like, a thing and somehow is still able to drive. And then you've got, like, the pop brownies in Revenge of the Fallen and the Transformer balls in Revenge of the Fallen. And it's like, there's really nothing that memorably dumb in this movie. Like, you kind of always expect that time where the movie's going to hit its absolute low. The Deep Wang thing with Ken Jeong and Dark of the Moon, stuff like that. This movie doesn't really have those low of moments. Like, that's kind of the very Michael Bay Transformers thing that this movie's missing. And that's a good thing. The closest thing we get to, I think, is like those horny old ladies. Which sounds bad when I say it, but it's really nothing. Like, they talk about, like, BBW and shit. But apart from that, it's quite mild compared to how long the Pop Brownies thing went on and how many fucking times Ken Jeong said Deep Wang and stuff like that. I really think it's weird I remember these movies more than I thought I did. Excuse me. But anyway, and another thing they do with her character, the British actress, is they do this thing at the beginning. It was very much like another character I don't like, which is Rachel Weisz in The Mummy. Where, you'll remember in The Mummy, the first scene we see her in, she's in the library, and she's on the ladder, and she knocks over all the shelves, and they all fall over, and it's like, oh, this character must be a klutz, but then she never does anything like that again. That's like, and that's ends up not being a character trait at all. So it's just in there. We do the same thing with her pretty much. We introduce her by her running into. She's so clearly there's so clearly a bike rack here, but she just runs her car right into it like it's the statue out front of the house in Home Alone, and she's the pizza guy. And it's like, oh, well, she's clumsy, she's a klutz, she doesn't watch what she's doing. And then once again, not really a lot of that from her after this. We're supposed to buy that she's, you know, knows all this historical stuff and doesn't believe the bullshit lies that are the mythology and stuff like that. There is another scene where she's rolling down a hill like a dumbass for no reason, but yeah, for the whole movie, she's really not that. And that's just how we say that that's how we introduce her. Okay. So, once again, this is a character in a Transformers movie. We really shouldn't need to discuss it as much as we already have. So, there's also, what else is there? There's the attempts at comedy. Now, there is some funny stuff in here, I will admit. Something you can't necessarily say about the other movies. Entirely. Like, every now and then there's a thing. But here, the comedy it works better in this than it has in the previous movies, but it's still really, really forced, and really kind of, a lot of it stems from, like, probably 90% of the dialogue in this movie is just characters telling other characters to shut up. Or Anthony Hopkins cussing people out. And that's kind of supposed to be the comedy of it. Now there was one scene where I felt like I was imagining it, because I was the only person, because there was a lot of people in the theater, and everybody's just laughing at everything. And it's like, this character says shut up, and this character says to shut up, and everybody's laughing and all that. And it's like, okay, and then there's one scene where just very nonchalantly, Anthony Hopkins is talking to a guard, and then when he's finished, he says, "Thank you, dickhead," and walks away, and that just kind of struck me, because it was unexpected in the conversation, and Anthony Hopkins said it. And I swear to God, I was the only person that heard it. It's like, you laugh at everything, you laugh at all the shut-ups, you're gonna let that pass by? But, okay, it's all confusing. So, but anyway, and then it's like, it's here, and it basically just is here to disrupt scenes. Like, there will be scenes, not that the plot matters in these movies or that it makes any damn sense, but it's like characters will be talking about plot, and then we just stop dead for these characters to just do this very benign banter, and then we just go back into it, and it goes on, and then you're like, okay, I'm starting to see how these movies end up 2.5 to 3 hours every time. How does this stuff get past the editing? Would you see the end credits, and the editing credit comes up, there's like 5 or 6 editors on this thing. That's crazy. And that you have these scenes that are just these really long, drawn-out scenes of characters barely saying anything to each other other than shut up. Or these little lines with long pauses in between them for laughing. And it's like, you have no idea how this could possibly happen in post-production. It's like, who's in charge of this? Well, it's Michael Bay. Michael Bay has made competent movies before. Pain and Gain's only 4 years old now, and that movie's fucking amazing. But, yeah, we still get this out of Transformers movies. And it's like they're their own mode. Like, everybody who makes this, because I talked about Jablonski earlier, who does really good. They could be seen as, like, generic, you know, action movie scores. But I think for generic action movie scores, he's really good at his job. And it's like, when people get signed on to a Transformers movie, it's like they all kind of go in the same mode, and they all kind of get back into nobody really cares if these movies are good anymore as long as we make the action scenes cool, which Age of Extinction failed at, but this movie does kind of pick back up on. Even if we do get to a point to where, obviously, one of the things you're going to dread the most if you don't care for Transformers movies is the climax. Because you know when you're watching a Transformers movie, 9 times out of 10, if you reach a point to where you feel like the climax is coming, or the climax is here and it's starting, you know that there's probably still an hour of the movie left because they go on and on and on and on. And it was Dark of the Moon was a really bad offender about that, and I thought Revenge of the Fallen was really stretched out, but I think Dark of the Moon outdid it. And then that's how it works. But in this movie in particular, it's not so much that we started a climax and it just goes on for a straight hour, but it's the climax is so on and off. I wasn't really quite sure. Like, usually when you're watching a movie, especially an action movie, you know when you're watching the climax. I wasn't really sure in this case. There were about 2 times where I thought I was watching a climax, and then there was a break, and then we finally got the big climax, and then there was kind of one more climax thrown in. So, it wasn't even, like I said, I want to just say, oh, it was an hour-long climax, fuck that, but it's like, I don't know, I think they were supposed to be totally separate scenes, but it kind of felt like they were, like, one scene just split up. It's weird. It's especially weird for a climax. You really need to know when you're getting there. And this movie seemed a little confused by itself as far as where it was going to stop. It really didn't seem to know, or how far it was going to go. So, or what characters needed tied up and which ones didn't. So the point being is, it's pretty much a Transformers movie through and through, but the extremes in stupidity it has gotten to seem to not go as far in this movie. They are there, but it didn't seem like it was going to the absolute extremes of bullshit as the others have. It felt like it kind of restrained a little bit, if you can... Like, if you were to see this movie just by itself and I was to tell you this is the restrained version, you'd probably never step foot into another Transformers movie, but yeah, I didn't really get... I don't know, maybe I'm just, you know, desensitized to it now or what after having seen 5 of these things, but yeah, or if I'm just, you know, like, just let the stupid stuff pass, because there has been worse. And it's... Yeah, I don't know, it could be any of those things, but I really didn't feel like it went to the lengths the others did in regards to the stuff that's bad about it. Like I said, I'm sure there will be people who love it. There was a kid, like, probably 15. He's probably seen some movies in his life. It's hard to tell what they are, but I'm sure he's seen some. And this dude was real enthusiastic. He thought it was one of the best movies he'd ever seen, I think. And that's the kind of crowd these movies get. And you have the other half who just hate them for existing and will watch them just to hate their lives. There's a lot of extremes when it goes into these movies, and it's like, I really don't feel a whole lot of passion one way or the other. Once they're over, like if they're, you know, if I'm in one of the really long drawn-out climaxes, one of them, then I'm kind of hating my life. But once it's over, you know, I don't think it's the death of movies. I think they can coexist with some other great stuff that's getting put out. We just had It Comes at Night well, for me it was last week. So yeah, it's, I think both crowds can afford to calm down. But I do understand where it's like these big spectacles. Like there was a comic, I think it was Nick Swardson was talking about, we look at the Transformers movies, and because of the time we live in, we can say, oh, we're so tired of this, and it's all the same thing, and all that. But it's like, go back in time to, like, 1950, and show somebody a Transformers movie, and it'll be like, their heads would explode as to what movies have come to, or can accomplish. Well, accomplish is a strong word, but as far as just how big movies can get, yes, it is kind of drowning out, you know, kind of the independent scene, and it is kind of lowering expectations in regards to, for a lot of people, what makes a movie good and all that, and it's like it does feel a bit dismissive to seem like someone at Paramount is saying, well, if we make the action as big as possible, everything else can be shit and nobody will care. So that, I do think that's a problem for sure, but I do think that it's not. Yeah, this movie is not like the end of the world either. So, no. Well, you know, it's that's what the climax is. But I mean, quite literally in this real world, it's if you watch Transformers movies and you hate them, your life will go on. And it's like, yes, there's definitely stupid shit in there, but I mean, it's like, I don't necessarily feel dumber for having come out of one and not hating the world for them existing. It's ridiculous, but I do understand why it can be seen as a problem that, what these movies kind of, how they feel like they excel in one thing, they shouldn't try in other places. They should really try to fix that. They're not going to. They're not, but they should. They should really look into all aspects and, you know, attempt to do something. But it's like, it's fun. Like watching Anthony Hopkins in this, where it seems like these movies bring out something in some of its actors, like, where they just feel, like, you would think you see veteran Oscar-winning actors in movies, Oscar-winning actors like Anthony Hopkins, and you think, well, they're probably just going to be really bored through it, and they're going to be like, give me my paycheck, and I'm leaving, I'll say some lines and bullshit. Anthony Hopkins really seemed to... I mean, Anthony Hopkins has made some shit lately. There was Collide just earlier this year, but there was that movie with Colin Farrell where he could, like, read minds and shit recently, but still, it's really nice to see that Anthony Hopkins will throw himself into pretty much anything and just be game for it all. And I kind of got that vibe, too, from, like, Kelsey Grammer in Age of Extinction and Malkovich in Dark of the Moon and all that. Frances McDormand didn't give a shit, but I like that Malkovich kind of just played this weird-ass character, and he's like, I know I'm in a Transformers movie, I shouldn't care because I'm John Malkovich, but it's like, screw it. If I'm here, we'll just have fun with it. So I do like that adds something to it that wouldn't necessarily be there if actors were just trying to sleepwalk through it, like most of the leads, or or whoever they pull off the street to be the next female protagonist. But yeah, so that's basically where I am with that. So like I said, I understand the hate for the franchise. I guess I can understand the fans that really go crazy for it, but it's like, sometimes they're shit, sometimes they're mediocre, sometimes they're alright. And it's just a matter of how you feel about all that. But yeah, so there was that. I'm hoping this kind of combats a little bit the just kind of blind rage I'm sure all the other reviews are giving this movie. But, well, like I said, not that those are unfounded. Those people, I'm sure, they sat through the movie, they can say whatever they want to say, and I'm sure that's how they feel. I would not doubt it, but this is where I am, where it's just like, I'm just in the middle, and it's really no big deal, one way or the other to me. So it's another Transformers movie, it looks like a Transformers movie, it sounds like a Transformers movie. It exists, and that's all there is to it. And there will probably be going on with or without Michael Bay, with or without Mark Wahlberg. I guess we'll see. So, at least Michael Bay has this way about making things a big spectacle and has some kind of visual flair. If these movies go on to somebody else, yeah, they're probably gonna get, like, we haven't even scratched the surface of how bad we can be. And that's, when you look at Revenge of the Fallen, that's saying something, so... yes. So, there it is. Yeah, we've got Spider-Man coming at some point. I'm gonna go ahead and do the big franchise versus again. Hopefully I get it done in time, and then we'll see where we're at. The summer of movies is really just we're kind of like right dead center in it now, so we'll see what else happens. Baby Driver is next week, and that is probably my most anticipated movie of the year right now. So that and Star Wars. So we're very excited. We'll see if we can build ourselves back up after sitting through another 2.5-hour Transformers movie. So yes, let's just get excited for that and leave it at that. So that's it.